Good morning. Back in here, GameDaySportsRadio.com. Boji Wood with you, talking a little college football this morning, wrapping up the NFL from yesterday. A lot of people upset the Alabama Crimson Tide didn't get in. Of course, most of those people, if not, let's just say all of those people, are wearing crimson. Uh, quite frankly, Alabama did not deserve to be in. I don't buy the argument, oh, they'd be favored. Listen, they were favored in Knoxville. They were favored in Baton Rouge. They lost both those games. So, in my opinion, the committee got it right. That's why we need an expanded playoff. I've been saying that for a long, long time now, is that we should be at 16 teams. If Division II and Division III and NAIA, or FCS as they call it now, and NAIA, if they can have playoffs, then the big boys can too. There's no reason for that. And of course, we've talked a lot about how sports have changed over the years, especially the last couple of decades, really accelerated the last 10 years with all the broadcast. Just about every game is broadcast some way now. Uh, College games, all the the Sunday ticket, all that stuff's done. And where it used to be, if you were a high school and you were on the radio, or God forbid you're on television, you were the big time. And then ESPN started picking up and carrying high school games. And that is the high school broadcasting landscape has changed unbelievably in the last 10 years or so. And want to bring in someone right now who's got a good eye and a good ear on all of this is Pat Patrick out of Birmingham, Alabama. Pat, how are you doing?
Life is pretty good here, Bojan.
No doubt about it, down there in Hoover, Alabama, where you are. And really, Pat, want to talk to you about how you got into high school broadcasting. Of course, you're a former player and former coach, and you were teaching and interested in broadcasting. I don't really know all the backdrop of all of that, but I just know that I've known you for 30 years or so, and first met you from the broadcasting aspect of it, listening to your games as I was recruiting in the Birmingham area. I would listen to your games as I was going from one stadium to the next, and then your scoreboard show. But, back in 83, 84, when you got started, there, if there was one high school game on at any given week, that was a big deal. Tell us kind of what got you started into this high school broadcasting.
Well, other than loving the football game, economics is one thing that got me started here. Do you want the 5-minute version or the 30-minute version?
We want the 5-minute version. We're on a timeline here now.
I was teaching school at local Birmingham area high school that no longer exists, West End High School, and had been teaching, having summer school teaching positions. And one year I did not, so I started asking someone to help me sell radio. I thought that then I'd go back to teaching in the fall. Well, but that summer, I sold radio, and at the end of the summer, the manager said, well, let's do high school football. Nobody's doing that. So I started broadcasting, and we did the first game under WYDE Game of the Week, AM 850 here in Birmingham, covering most of North Alabama. But the year after, at the end of that, the manager, who was a high school buddy of mine, said, Pat, you need to take this thing on the road. There's a lot of people interested in this. And so we the year after that, it would have been, I think, 1985 or 86, we did Pat Patrick's Best in High School Football Game of the Week. Didn't even include the playoffs. We didn't have a scoreboard show. We were kind of making it up as we go. And let me put a kind of a final note on that. It was a blessing to me, and we were able to make a small dollar out of it, and it was a good teacher supplement for me. And that's and the Lord blessed us with 35 years of that.
And Pat, going on as you got deeper and deeper into it, that you started covering multiple games, having both radio and television, and of course, you were ahead of your time in that aspect. And now, from what I understand, just about every high school has their own feed that they can do live video and play-by-play each week from their own home games. And again, I'm kind of out of that realm of it from a high school standpoint, but is that kind of what's happened?
Yeah, and I think when we began, the only Birmingham area radio station, 1985, was a local Bessemer station, WSMQ. Eventually, their play-by-play announcer became one of ours. We were lucky enough to even expand to 3 different broadcasts, 3 different football games with 6 teams. But you're exactly right. We were the only ones that were doing that, and we met with a school here as athletic director not too long ago with the idea of maybe covering, of all things, girls high school football, flag football. And the athletic director says, well, I can help you with that. She said, but it was a she. She said, we have our own broadcast of our games and so forth. And so the guy I was working with, old buddy of yours from Auburn, Alvin Bressler, and Alvin and I walked out and we both agreed that if we tried to do that game or those kind of games, we would be competing against the area, clubs, the booster clubs. And so we just decided it would be a conflict of interest, and we didn't want to get into competing for the marketing dollar, which it would have taken to do. And so that's kind of gone away.
Well, Pat, in 35 years, of course, I attended several of your banquets where you honored the players that were players of the week during your high school games that you announced. In 35 years, again, you kind of stepping into your golden age, you and Miss Norma Kay, your bride, kind of stepping into the golden years. You've stepped away from the broadcasting and those type things. But tell me, in those 35 years, what was the biggest change that you saw in high school broadcasting over those 35 years?
Wow, a lot of people started getting involved with it. We were on cable TV as well as Crawford Broadcasting, 100,000 watt radio, and we didn't necessarily cover the same games. But since then, people like Scott Griffin, who's a well-known name here in the Birmingham area, and other people have gone on to do TV and radio. And I'm just proud of them for doing that.
Right. But again, we go back, as we said, back when you started, no one was doing it. You were kind of on the forefront of broadcasting high school sports there in the Birmingham metro area. And now just about every school has some type of broadcast team. As you mentioned, Scott Griffin, I think Scott's at Vestavia now. Jamie, what was Jamie's last name?
Jamie Gilmore.
Jamie Gilmore used to work for you. He's worked, I think, at Helena High School the last time that we chatted about this. And so a lot of guys that work for you and with you have gone on and they're broadcasting as a permanent broadcast team for some of the local high schools there.
Yeah, Gary Ingram was our producer and did a great job. We had a small trailer we would pull around with, and he'd operate out of that. This is on the TV side of it. But before we began TV, Reuben Grant, Birmingham sports writer, news, was kind enough to write an article about how we had expanded. And this would have been right after we got started, maybe in the late 80s, 1980s, where we had 3 games, as I mentioned earlier, 3 separate games on 3 different radio networks. And there's a lot of war stories we could get into maybe in the future if you ever want to do this. But a lot of war stories, a lot of funny stories too, really.
Well, Pat, we appreciate your time this morning here on GameDaySportsRadio.com. And, of course, I appreciate your friendship all these many years. And I don't know of anyone in the state of Alabama who's done more to promote high school football, high school athletics than you have.
Well, it's been a blessing to me, and the Lord takes care of us. He surely does.
Pat Patrick from Pat Patrick's Best in High School Football down in Hoover, Alabama, Birmingham metro area. And we'll be right back after this quick break on GameDaySportsRadio.com. Coach Max Howell will be joining us talking a little college football playoffs.